You're going to that wedding whether you like it or not, Laura. Miss it, and I'll stop paying for your education. Do you understand me? My father's voice came through the phone, sharp and absolute. I sat in my small apartment in Portland, Oregon, staring at the acceptance letter on my desk, the one my family knew nothing about. It was from a graduate program in environmental engineering, something I'd earned completely on my own. My name is Laura, and I'm 22 years old. For as long as I can remember, I've been the invisible daughter, the one who blended into the background while my family focused entirely on my younger sister, Jessica. She was the golden child, the family's pride. Every small victory of hers was treated like a grand celebration. It, on the other hand, was the afterthought, the comparison point meant to make Jessica shine brighter. The wedding my father was forcing me to attend was Jessica's. She was marrying Trevor, a wealthy guy who worked in commercial real estate. I'd met him twice, and both times he'd looked right through me like I didn't exist. They were perfect together in that sense. Both self-absorbed, both convinced the world revolved around them. Dad, I have exams that week, I said, though it wasn't true. I'd already graduated 3 weeks earlier, summa cum laude, with a degree in environmental engineering. I'd been my class valedictorian and had a job offer waiting for me, $110,000 a year to start, but they didn't know. I'd stopped sharing my successes long ago when it became clear they didn't care. Exams can wait, he snapped. Your sister's wedding happens once. You think your mother and I worked so hard to put you through school so you could skip family events? That made me laugh quietly. Worked so hard? They'd paid for only my first semester and never let me forget it. After that, I'd taken loans, worked part-time, and hunted scholarships just to stay afloat. Meanwhile, they funded Jessica's sorority dues, vacations, and designer clothes. I'll think about it, I said. You'll do more than think about it. You'll be there in a dress smiling. Otherwise, forget about another tuition payment. He hung up before I could reply. I set my phone down and looked around my little studio apartment. It wasn't fancy, just a kitchenette, a small bathroom that sometimes smelled like the neighbors cooking, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every dish, every book had been paid for with my own money. My father's threat about tuition was meaningless. There was no tuition left to pay. I'd finished school, graduated with honors, and secured a position at Thornberry Systems, one of the top environmental engineering firms in the Pacific Northwest. My new job started in 2 weeks, right after Jessica's wedding, which I had no plans to attend. I opened the family group chat. It was filled with wedding updates, flower choices, seating charts, fittings, and rehearsal dinners. My mother had sent hundreds of photos of Jessica in various white dresses, each caption gushing about how stunning she looked and how lucky Trevor was. Not once had anyone asked how I was doing. Not once had they acknowledged my graduation. When I'd mentioned it a month earlier, my mother's reply had been, "That's nice, honey," before quickly shifting the topic back to Jessica's bachelorette trip. By now, I'd stopped expecting anything different. Jessica was the star. I was the backdrop. That's how it had always been, and probably always would be. But what they didn't realize was that I no longer needed their approval. I'd built a life they knew nothing about, one filled with independence and hard-earned success. On my desk sat an envelope, thick, sealed, and heavy with meaning. Inside was a cashier's check for $1,250, the exact amount my parents had paid for that first semester, calculated down to the last cent. It had taken me months to save, living frugally, stretching every dollar. But I'd done it. This wasn't a gesture of gratitude or debt. It was closure. Returning that money meant I no longer owed them anything. No obligations, no guilt, no leverage. Once they received it, I'd finally be free. The wedding was just 2 days away. I'd already decided I wouldn't attend, but I hadn't told them yet. I wanted to see my father's face when I handed him that envelope. I wanted him to understand that his threats meant nothing, that I didn't need him, his approval, or his money, and that my success had come in spite of him, not because of him. Maybe it was childish. Maybe I should have walked away quietly. But after years of being treated like I didn't matter, I wanted them to see exactly what they'd lost. Growing up in my family felt like living under a spotlight that never shone on me. Jessica, 3 years younger, was always the center of attention. She was the beautiful, outgoing one, the one who could charm our parents with a single smile. I, on the other hand, was practical and quiet, the one who found meaning only in academics. My parents never said I wasn't enough, but their actions spoke clearly. When I made the honor roll in middle school, my mother smiled briefly and went back to helping Jessica practice for her dance recital. When I won a regional science fair, my father gave me a quick pat on the shoulder before spending dinner talking about Jessica's cheer squad going to nationals. My achievements were always just side notes in her story. By college, I'd stopped trying to compete. I focused on my studies, worked part-time jobs, and built my own life apart from theirs. I came home for holidays out of obligation, but I'd stopped sharing anything real about my future. Why bother? They weren't listening. Jessica, meanwhile, coasted through a business degree our parents fully funded. She joined a sorority, partied, and filled social media with her glamorous posts. Despite her mediocre grades and lack of direction, she didn't need to worry. She'd met Trevor in her senior year. He had money and connections, which was all my parents cared about. 6 months ago, at a family dinner I reluctantly attended, Jessica announced her engagement. She flashed a large diamond ring and squealed about Trevor's romantic proposal in wine country. My mother cried tears of joy. My father shook Trevor's hand and welcomed him into the family. I sat there smiling politely as they toasted to Jessica's bright future. No one asked about mine. No one cared if I was dating or what my plans were after graduation. I was just there, applauding someone else's success. After that night, I drove back to Portland and made a decision. I was done trying to belong. I'd finish my degree, start my career, and move on. They could keep their perfect daughter, perfect son-in-law, and perfect lives. I didn't need to be part of it, but walking away wasn't simple. My father never stopped reminding me that he paid for my education, insisting I owed him something. That's why I'd saved enough to repay every cent. I wanted a clean break, no debts, no ties. The night before the wedding, my mother called. I was sealing the envelope when her name appeared on my phone. "Hi, Mom," I said evenly. "Laura, honey, just making sure you're coming tomorrow. Your father's worried you might skip it." I almost laughed. "Worried for appearances, maybe." "I'll be there," I said. "Oh, good. Jessica will be thrilled. She's been asking about you." A lie, of course. Jessica hadn't asked about me in years. But I let it go. "What time's the ceremony?" 3 o'clock, but family photos start at 1. "You'll be there by 1, right?" "I'll be there. And wear something nice, dear." Jessica wants everyone looking their best. I glanced at the simple navy dress hanging in my closet. Appropriate, modest, but not flashy enough for Jessica's taste. She'd probably make some remark about how I could have tried harder. "I'll look fine, Mom." "All right, honey. See you tomorrow." "And Laura? Yeah? Try to be happy for your sister. It's her big day." I hung up without replying. Try to be happy for her, as if I hadn't spent my whole life doing exactly that. That night, I barely slept. I kept running through what I'd say when I handed my father the envelope. I'd practiced it so many times, but I wasn't sure I could speak without my voice trembling. Part of me considered just mailing the check, avoiding the confrontation altogether. It would be easier. But another part of me, the one tired of being overlooked, wanted to face them. I wanted them to finally see me for who I was without their validation. The wedding was at a venue in Beaverton, about 20 minutes from my apartment. I arrived at 1:15, 15 minutes late, after sitting in my car trying to gather the courage to go inside. The place was stunning, of course. White roses, twinkling lights, and a string quartet filled the air. Guests mingled, sipping champagne, admiring the scene. I spotted my parents near the front, chatting with Trevor's family. My father was laughing, his hand resting on my mother's back. They looked proud and content. I took a deep breath, tightened my grip on the envelope, and walked toward them. My father noticed me first. His face shifted from relaxed to irritated. "You're late," he said, loud enough for others to hear. "Traffic," I replied quickly. My mother's eyes swept over my dress and she frowned. "Oh, Laura, that's what you're wearing?" I glanced down at the navy fabric. It was elegant and modest, but not enough for her. "It's fine," I said. "Well, it'll have to do. Come, we need family photos before the ceremony." She gestured toward a group near the floral arch, but I didn't move. Instead, I extended the envelope to my father. "What's this?" he asked, taking it but not opening it. "Open it," I said. He hesitated, then tore it open. His expression changed as he pulled out the check. "What is this?" he asked again, this time with confusion instead of annoyance. It's a check for $12,350, I said calmly. That's exactly what you paid for my first semester of college. I'm returning it. My mother leaned closer, eyes widening. Laura, what are you talking about? I'm talking about how you've used that tuition payment to control me for the past 4 years, I said evenly. Every time I made a decision you didn't like, you threatened to stop paying for my education. Well, here's your money back. Now you have no leverage. My father blinked, confused. Leverage? Laura, we're your parents. We were just trying to help. Help? I gave a short, dry laugh. You paid for 1 semester and acted like you funded my whole degree. I covered the rest myself. Loans, scholarships, 3 jobs. Meanwhile, you showered Jessica with money like it was nothing. That's not fair, my mother snapped. We've always supported you. No, I said quietly. You supported Jessica. I was always the afterthought. People nearby began turning to watch. My father's face flushed red as he stepped closer and lowered his voice. This isn't the time or place. Your sister's about to get married? I know, I said. And I'm not staying. What? I'm leaving. I only came to return this check and tell you I'm done. Done pretending I belong in this family. Done being invisible. Done letting you treat me like I don't matter. My mother reached toward me, but I stepped back. Laura, don't be ridiculous. You can't just walk out. Watch me. I turned and headed for the exit. My father's voice followed, sharp and commanding. Laura, get back here right now. But I didn't stop. My heart raced, my hands trembled, but my steps were firm. Behind me, my mother's voice rose, panicked, calling it embarrassing and saying I was ruining everything. But I wasn't ruining anything. For the first time, I was choosing myself. When I reached my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Part of me expected my father to come after me, to demand I return or threaten something new. But no one came. I started the engine and drove off, leaving the venue and my family behind. As I drove toward Portland, a rush of emotions hit me. Relief, sadness, anger, freedom. I had spent years chasing my parents' approval, trying to prove I was worthy of their attention. For what? They were never going to see me the way I hoped they would, but the truth was, I didn't need them to. I'd built my own life, earned my degree, landed my job, and proven I was strong and capable. Their opinion couldn't erase that. Still, a thought lingered. They didn't know I'd graduated. They didn't know I'd found a great job. They had no idea what I'd accomplished. Part of me wanted them to find out, to see what they had ignored. But another part wondered if it even mattered. Would it change anything? Would they suddenly admit they'd been wrong? Or would they just dismiss it, comparing me again to Jessica's wedding or Trevor's new job? Whatever they found more impressive that week. I didn't know the answers. All I knew was that cutting them out was the first real step toward peace. Scary, yes, but right. When I got home, I poured a glass of wine and sat on my couch, staring at the acceptance letter for graduate school. I hadn't decided yet whether to go. The job at Thornberry Systems was amazing, and I didn't want to lose it, but grad school could open even more doors. For once, I had real choices that were mine, and no one could take that away. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Where did you go? Mom said you left. What's happening? I stared at it for a while, then deleted it without replying. I was done explaining myself to people who didn't care. A week after the wedding, my phone overflowed with calls and messages. My mother called 17 times in 3 days. My father sent angry texts demanding explanations. Jessica's voicemails started confused, then turned accusatory. I ignored all of them. Instead, I focused on my new job, researching Thornberry Systems, preparing for upcoming projects, setting up my apartment. I bought professional clothes, organized a workspace, and kept reminding myself I'd made the right decision. Most of the time, I believed it. But late at night, doubts crept in. Had I overreacted? Should I have stayed for the wedding? Was I being petty? Then I'd remember my father's look when I handed him that check. Not proud, not understanding, just annoyed that I'd disrupted his evening. I'd remember my mother's first words being about my dress, not about me. I'd remember years of being ignored and treated like background in someone else's story. No, I hadn't overreacted. I'd finally stood up for myself. 5 days after the wedding, on a Thursday afternoon, a knock came at my door. I checked the peephole. Jessica stood outside, wearing designer jeans and a silk blouse, her hair perfectly done. I thought about not answering, but curiosity won. I cracked the door. "What are you doing here?" "Can I come in?" she asked softly. "How did you even get my address?" "Mom had it from when you moved in." "Please, Laura, we need to talk." I hesitated before stepping aside. Jessica entered my apartment and glanced around, her nose wrinkling slightly. I could already guess her thoughts. My place was modest and small, nothing compared to the upscale condo she and Trevor had just moved into. "What do you want, Jessica?" I asked. She turned toward me, tears brimming in her eyes. Something I didn't expect. "I want to know why you ruined my wedding." "I didn't ruin it. I left before it even started." "Exactly," she shot back. "You left and caused a scene. Mom cried through the ceremony, Dad was furious, and everyone kept asking where you were. Do you realize how embarrassing that was?" I folded my arms. "I'm sorry my absence inconvenienced you." "That's not what I meant." She wiped at her tears, leaving streaks of mascara. "I just don't understand. Why would you do that? Why give Dad that money and walk away?" "Because I'm done being treated like I don't matter." "What are you talking about?" "You matter. You're my sister." I let out a humorless laugh. "Really? When's the last time you asked how I was doing? When did Mom or Dad ever come to one of my events or celebrate something I achieved?" Jessica looked genuinely confused. "What accomplishments?" And there it was. Proof of how invisible I'd been. "I graduated 3 weeks ago," I said quietly. "Summa cum laude. Valedictorian." I gave the commencement speech. "None of you came. None of you even knew." "I didn't tell you because I knew it wouldn't matter." Her mouth fell open. "You graduated? Why didn't you say anything?" "Because whenever I tried, you, Mom, or Dad turned the conversation back to you. Your sorority, your wedding, your life. There was never space for mine." Jessica sank onto my couch, looking stunned. "I didn't know." "Of course not." "You never asked?" "Laura, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you felt overlooked. I didn't know you had to work so hard for everything while Mom and Dad handed things to me." She flinched when I added, "That's the difference. I worked 3 jobs to pay for college while you had their full support. That's not fair." "I never asked for that." "No, but you never questioned it either. You never thought about how it felt to always be compared to you, and never measure up." "I never compared us." "That was Mom and Dad," she said quietly. "And you benefited from it," I replied. I sat in the chair opposite her. "I'm not angry at you, Jessica. You didn't create this, but you didn't challenge it either." And I didn't, until now. She was silent for a long moment, staring at her hands. "So what happens now?" "I'm not sure. I start my new job on Monday. I'm moving on, without expectations, without needing anyone's approval. If you want to be part of my life, you'll need to take a genuine interest in it, not just when it suits you." Jessica nodded slowly. "I can try. I want to try. Then start by listening. I got a job at Thornbury Systems. I'll be working on environmental engineering projects, designing sustainable water systems. I'm making 6 figures. I'm also thinking about a graduate program in environmental policy." Her eyes widened. "Laura, that's incredible. I had no idea." "Nobody did," I said simply, "because nobody asked." She stood, looking uncertain. "I should go. Trevor's waiting. But Laura, I really am sorry, and I'm proud of you for what it's worth." I walked her to the door. As she stepped into the hallway, she turned back. "Are you going to talk to Mom and Dad?" "I don't know. Maybe someday, but not now. I need space." She nodded and left. I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling drained but strangely relieved. Maybe Jessica would change. Maybe not. Either way, I'd finally said what I needed to. My phone buzzed. A message from Dad. "Your mother is devastated. You owe her an apology." I stared at the text, frustration rising. Even now, it was about them, about how my actions hurt them. Not once had he acknowledged how they'd hurt me. I typed and erased several responses before settling on something simple. "I don't owe anyone anything. I paid you back. We're even." His reply came instantly. "That money doesn't erase 18 years of raising you. You're being selfish and ungrateful." Selfish. The word stung, but I knew better. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. Setting boundaries isn't ungrateful. Refusing mistreatment isn't a flaw. I turned off my phone and went to bed early, clearing my head for Monday, my first day at the new job. My first week at Thornbury Systems was busy in the best way. The office was bright and modern, with open workspaces and huge windows overlooking the city. My team of 6 engineers was sharp, collaborative, and passionate about sustainability. My supervisor, Gretchen, was a seasoned professional, demanding yet encouraging. I threw myself into the work, glad for the focus. We were developing a water reclamation system for a municipality near Seattle, and I spent hours on calculations, environmental assessments, and design meetings. For the first time in weeks, I felt like myself, not someone's daughter or sister, just Laura, an engineer making a difference. On Friday, Gretchen called me into her office. "How's your first week been?" "Good, really good. I'm learning a lot. You've done excellent work," she said. "I've been impressed. I also wanted to tell you, we're preparing a proposal for a major project with the city of Portland. It's a large-scale sustainability plan. Water systems, waste management, green infrastructure. If we win, it'll be one of our biggest contracts ever. That sounds amazing." "It is. And I want you on the team. You'll work closely with me and 2 senior engineers. It's a lot of responsibility for a newcomer, but I believe you can handle it." A rush of excitement filled me. "I'd love to be part of it." "Good," she smiled. "We present the proposal in 3 weeks. You'll help with technical documentation and be ready for council questions." I walked out of her office feeling proud and re-energized. This was exactly the kind of chance I had worked tirelessly to earn. And I had achieved it through my own effort, not because of any family influence or favoritism. That evening, I met up with Kelsey, my closest friend from college. She was one of the few people who fully understood the complexities of my family. We met at a small restaurant in downtown Portland, and I caught her up on everything that had unfolded since the wedding. "I still can't believe you actually handed him a check and walked out," she said, shaking her head in awe. "That's the boldest thing I've ever heard." "It didn't feel bold," I admitted. "It felt terrifying." "But you did it anyway," she replied. "That's what matters." She took a sip of her wine. "Have you heard from them since Jessica showed up?" "My dad keeps texting. My mom leaves voicemails. I've been ignoring most of them." "Good," Kelsey said firmly. "You don't owe them anything, Laura. You've been independent for years. They just never noticed." "That's what hurts the most," I said quietly. "They didn't see it. I worked so hard to stand on my own, to not rely on them, but they just assumed I was failing. They never imagined I might actually be succeeding." Kelsey reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's their loss. You're talented, successful, and you don't need their approval. You know that, right?" "I'm starting to," I said with a small smile. We spent the rest of dinner talking about her job, her dating life, and our summer plans. It was a relief to focus on normal topics, to have a conversation that wasn't overshadowed by family tension. When I got home that night, I noticed an envelope slipped under my door. My stomach dropped when I recognized my mother's handwriting. Inside was a card with a generic message about family and forgiveness. Beneath the printed words, she had written, "Laura, please come home. We miss you and love you. Whatever our issues are, we can work through them together. You're our daughter, and we want you in our lives. Please call me. Love, Mom." I stared at the card for a long time, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to believe her, to think things could change. But another part of me knew this wasn't an apology. It wasn't acknowledgement of the hurt they'd caused. It was just an invitation to return and pretend everything was fine. I set the card aside and went to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. My mind kept replaying memories, the time I won a math competition and they forgot to pick me up because they were at Jessica's dance recital. The Christmas when I got socks and a calculator while Jessica received a new laptop and designer purse. All the dinners where I sat silently while they discussed her achievements. Then I thought about the life I was building now. The job that challenged and inspired me, the independence I'd fought for, and the respect I was earning from colleagues who valued my work. I no longer needed my family's validation. I had learned to value myself, though it still hurt. The next morning, I woke to a message from Jessica. "Mom told me she sent you a card. I know you're upset, but please think about talking to them. They really do miss you." I didn't respond right away. I went for a run to clear my mind, then replied afterward, "I appreciate you reaching out, but I need more time. I'm not ready to have that conversation yet." Her reply came almost instantly. "I understand. Just know I'm here if you need me." It was a small gesture, but it mattered. Maybe Jessica was genuinely trying. Maybe not. Time would tell. The following week, I threw myself into the Portland Sustainability Project. It was a massive undertaking, redesigning the city's water systems to cut waste and improve efficiency, adding green spaces to manage storm runoff, and launching educational programs on environmental awareness. It was exactly the kind of work I had dreamed about back in college when I chose environmental engineering. One afternoon, while reviewing budget estimates, my phone rang. The number was local but unfamiliar. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something made me answer. Hello? Is this Laura? Yes, who's calling? This is Trevor, Jessica's husband. We've met a couple of times. I straightened in my chair, surprised. What do you need, Trevor? I wanted to talk about something. Do you have a few minutes? His tone was cautious, almost uneasy, not how I remembered him. He'd always seemed overly confident. I'm listening, I said evenly. Look, I know things are tense with your family right now. Jessica told me what happened at the wedding, and I wanted to reach out because there's something you should know. What is it? He hesitated. Could we meet in person? I'd rather not discuss this over the phone. I hesitated too. Meeting Trevor alone felt strange, and I wasn't sure I trusted his intentions. Still, curiosity won. Fine, I said. There's a coffee shop on Northwest 23rd, Brew Point. I can meet you there in an hour. I'll be there. I spent the next 45 minutes wondering what he wanted. Maybe he was trying to mediate. Maybe Jessica had sent him. Or maybe it was something else entirely. When I arrived at Brew Point, Trevor was already seated in the corner with 2 coffees in front of him. He stood as I approached, looking uneasy in jeans and a button-down shirt. Thanks for meeting me, he said, gesturing toward the seat opposite him. I got you a coffee, just a regular drip. I wasn't sure what you liked. Thanks, I said, taking the cup and waiting. Trevor ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture that felt out of character. All right. I'll just be straightforward because there's no easy way to say this. Your parents haven't been honest with Jessica and me about their finances. I frowned. What do you mean? About 3 months ago, your dad approached me for a loan. He said his business was facing temporary cash flow problems and needed $20,000 to manage expenses until a client payment came through. He assured me he'd return it within 60 days. My father ran a small consulting firm that offered financial planning to businesses. It did fairly well, but wasn't particularly profitable. Still, $20,000 was a big amount. Did you give it to him? I asked. I did. He's family, and I wanted to help. But the 60 days passed, and when I followed up, he kept postponing repayment. First, he said the client delayed payment. Then there were unexpected costs. Later, he promised to settle after Jessica's wedding. Let me guess, he still hasn't repaid you. No, Trevor said. And last week, when I brought it up again, he told me he actually needed another $15,000 to keep the business running. He said without it, they might lose everything. I leaned back, trying to process what I'd just heard. So, what does this have to do with me? Jessica told me your parents paid for your college and have been supporting both of you financially for years. But if that's true, why would they be borrowing from me? Why are they struggling? I gave a short, dry laugh. They didn't pay for my education, Trevor. They covered only my first semester 4 years ago. After that, I handled everything myself. Loans, scholarships, and multiple jobs. And honestly, I doubt they've supported Jessica as much as you think. His face went pale. What? But they've always said they helped both of you and sacrificed a lot. They like to take credit for things they didn't actually do, I said. They've been telling people for years that they put me through college, but that's not true. And I'd bet they've overstated their help to Jessica, too. Trevor looked genuinely stunned. But they always talk about how much they've invested in both of you, how much they've given up. It's all an act, I said quietly. They want people to see them as generous and selfless parents, but the truth is far from it. I paused. Did my dad say why the business is failing? He said it's a tough market, that clients are cutting budgets, the usual explanation. But now I'm not sure what to believe. It could be true, I said. Or maybe he's simply mismanaging things and can't admit it. Either way, that's not your responsibility. I know, Trevor sighed, but Jessica's worried. She thinks they might lose their house. She's even talking about helping them financially long-term, maybe moving them in with us if it gets worse. I saw the concern in his eyes. Trevor came from a wealthy family, but he wasn't naive. He understood that supporting in-laws indefinitely could create tension and financial strain. What do you want me to do? I asked. I'm not sure, he admitted. I just thought you should know what's happening. And I wanted to ask, did they really pay for your college? No, they paid $12,000 for my first semester. I repaid that last week. We're even now. He absorbed this, jaw tightening. Jessica doesn't know any of this. Then maybe she should, I said. I'm not sure she'll believe me, he said. She idolizes your parents. She thinks they're selfless and devoted. That's because she's the only one who's ever really benefited, whether those sacrifices were real or not. I sipped my coffee. Look, Trevor, I can't help you here. I distanced myself from them for a reason. If you want to know the truth about their finances, check the facts yourself. Ask for records, statements, anything. Don't rely on their word alone. You're right, he said slowly. I know you're right. It's just, this isn't what I expected. Welcome to my reality, I said. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he added, for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Walking away, setting limits. Jessica told me what you said about feeling invisible, and I think she's starting to see how unhealthy things were. Maybe, I said. Or maybe she's just uncomfortable now that the truth's coming out. He gave a weary smile. Probably both. After Trevor left, I stayed in the cafe for nearly an hour, thinking over everything. My parents were clearly in financial trouble, maybe serious trouble. And instead of being honest, they were deceiving people and digging deeper into debt. Part of me felt justified. They'd always acted superior, as if they had everything figured out, when really they were just better at hiding their problems. But another part of me felt sad. They'd spent so much effort trying to look successful that they'd lost sight of what mattered, and now they were paying the price. I looked at the last text my father had sent. You're being selfish and ungrateful. I typed a reply. I know about the money from Trevor. I know the business is struggling. If you're in trouble, just be honest. Don't blame me for setting boundaries. I'm not coming back to fix this. I hit send before I could change my mind. An hour later, his response came, how dare you interfere in my business? This has nothing to do with you, I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. That evening, Jessica called. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Trevor told me about the money, she said right away. Is it true about college? Yes. Why didn't you ever tell me? Would it have changed anything? She was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Maybe. I just feel like I don't recognize anything anymore. I thought Mom and Dad were perfect. Now I'm realizing they've been lying about so much. They're not perfect, Jessica, I said softly. No one is. They've been using their so-called generosity as leverage for years, and I'm done playing along. I'm finally beginning to realize that, she sighed. Trevor wants to ask them for financial records before we send any more money. I think he's right, but I don't know how to bring it up without making them angry. That's between you and Trevor, I said. I can't help you there. I know, she admitted softly. I just wanted to tell you that I believe you about everything now, and I'm sorry I didn't realize it sooner. It was the closest thing to a real apology I'd ever received from anyone in my family. It didn't fix everything, but it mattered. Thanks, Jessica, I said. After we hung up, I sat on my couch, staring at the ceiling, feeling drained. The past 3 weeks had been a storm of confrontations, realizations, and tough choices. I'd cut ties with my parents, started a new job, and watched my family's carefully maintained image start to unravel. Through all of it, I'd stayed true to myself. I'd set boundaries, demanded respect, and refused to let them make me feel small again. It wasn't easy or comfortable, but it was necessary. My phone buzzed. A text from Kelsey, "How are you holding up?" I smiled and replied, "I'm okay. Actually, better than okay. I'm finally free." 3 weeks after that conversation with Trevor, I was fully immersed in preparing for the Portland Sustainability Project presentation. Our team had developed a detailed proposal that included technical plans, cost evaluations, environmental impact data, and implementation schedules. It was some of the best work I'd ever been part of, and I felt proud of it. The presentation was set for Thursday afternoon at City Hall. The City Council would be there, along with representatives from other firms competing for the same contract. It was high stakes, and I'd spent the past week rehearsing until I could deliver my part flawlessly. On Wednesday evening, the night before the presentation, my phone rang. It was my mother. I stared at the screen for a long moment, unsure whether to answer. We hadn't spoken since the wedding, and I didn't know if I was ready for whatever she wanted to say. Curiosity won out. "Hello, Laura. Honey, it's Mom." Her voice was tight, as if she'd been crying. "I need to tell you something important." "What is it?" "It's your father. He's had a heart attack." My stomach dropped. "What? When?" "This afternoon. He collapsed at work. They rushed him to the hospital. He's stable now, but the doctors say he has to make big changes. Less stress, better food, more rest." I sank back into the couch, trying to process it. Despite everything, he was still my dad. The thought of losing him frightened me more than I wanted to admit. Is he going to be okay? They think so. But Laura, we need to talk about the business. With him in the hospital, someone needs to take over, at least temporarily. And with everything that's been happening, I thought maybe you could... No, Mom. Please, Laura. I know things have been hard between us, but your father needs help. The business is in trouble, and if someone doesn't step in, we could lose everything. Then hire someone. Or ask Jessica. Jessica doesn't know anything about business, and we can't afford to hire outside help. You're the only one with the knowledge and skills to manage it. I closed my eyes, feeling that old, familiar pull of guilt and responsibility. This was how it always went, waiting until a crisis hit, then expecting me to fix everything. Mom, I'm sorry about Dad. Truly. But I can't abandon everything to save his business. I have my own job and my own life. Your career can wait. This is family. Family goes both ways, I said firmly. You can't ignore me for years and then expect me to come running when you need something. We never ignored you, Laura. We've always loved and supported you. That's not true, and you know it. You paid for one semester of college and used it as leverage for years. You overlooked my accomplishments and made it clear Jessica was the favorite. And now suddenly I matter because you need something. That's unfair. We did the best we could. Maybe, but your best wasn't enough. And I won't give up my life to fix your mistakes. There was a long silence. When she spoke again, her voice had gone cold. So that's it? You're just going to abandon us when we need you most? I'm not abandoning you. I'm setting boundaries. If you need help with the business, hire a consultant. If you need emotional support, call Jessica. But stop expecting me to sacrifice everything for you. Fine, she said sharply. We'll figure something else out. She hung up before I could reply. I sat there, staring at my phone, shaken. Part of me wondered if I'd gone too far, but deep down, I knew I'd made the right choice. I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for people who only valued me when they needed something. That night, I barely slept. My mind replayed our conversation over and over, imagining worst-case scenarios where my father died, and they blamed me. But then I'd remember all the times they dismissed me, all the ways they made me feel small. I couldn't let guilt drag me back. The next morning, I woke early and got ready for the presentation. I put on my best charcoal gray suit, a cream blouse, and styled my hair neatly. My reflection looked calm and capable, someone who belonged among city officials and business leaders. At the office, our team met for a final run-through. Gretchen gave a short pep talk. Stay calm, be confident, answer directly, and remember we had the strongest proposal. You've all done incredible work, she said, looking around the room. The council would be lucky to have us. Don't forget that. We arrived at City Hall 30 minutes early to set up. The room was grand, high ceilings, wood paneling, and a long table for the council members. Other firms were setting up too, some familiar faces from past conferences. At exactly 2 p.m., the council members entered and took their seats. There were 7 of them, men and women ranging in age from their 30s to 60s. The council president, a woman named Diane, called the meeting to order. Thank you all for being here today. We'll hear presentations from 4 firms competing for the Portland Sustainability Initiative contract. Each firm will have 30 minutes to present, followed by 15 minutes of questions. Let's begin with Thornberry Systems. Gretchen began the presentation, introducing the project's overall scope and vision. She then handed it over to Marcus, one of our senior engineers, who detailed the technical aspects of the water infrastructure redesign. When it was my turn, I stood up and moved toward the display screen showing our slides. My pulse was racing, but my voice stayed steady. Good afternoon. I'm Laura, and I'll be covering the environmental impact assessment and long-term sustainability indicators for this project. I switched to the first slide, which outlined projected water conservation data over a 20-year timeline. I had spent hours verifying each number to ensure the estimates were both bold and achievable. According to our models, implementing the new water reclamation system would cut municipal water usage by 32% within the first 5 years, increasing to 48% by the 10th year as the system reached peak efficiency. I walked the audience through the findings, explained our methodology, addressed possible concerns, and emphasized the environmental advantages. As I spoke, several council members nodded, took notes, and leaned forward, visibly engaged. When I wrapped up my section, I passed the presentation back to Gretchen, who concluded with budget forecasts and the project's implementation schedule. The entire session lasted precisely 28 minutes. "Thank you," said Diane. "We'll now open the floor for questions." The questions came quickly and covered a wide range: permits, construction timelines, maintenance costs, and community impact. Our team responded confidently, relying on the extensive preparation we'd done. One council member, George, a man in his 50s, directed his question toward me. "Laura, your numbers are impressive, but they seem quite optimistic. What if we don't achieve those conservation levels? What's the backup plan?" I had expected this question. We've included conservative margins in all projections. The 32% reduction assumes average adoption rates and normal weather conditions. Even in a less favorable scenario, slower adoption or unusually wet years, we'd still achieve around a 20% reduction. Additionally, our plan includes quarterly reviews so strategies can be updated as needed. He appeared satisfied with the answer. A few more technical questions followed, which Marcus and Gretchen handled smoothly. After a 15-minute Q&A, Diane thanked us and announced a short recess before the next presentation. We gathered our materials and stepped into the hallway. Gretchen smiled broadly. "That was outstanding. Everyone did great, especially you, Laura. You handled those environmental questions like a pro." "Thanks," I said. "I was nervous about that part." "You didn't show it," she replied. "You came across as calm and confident, exactly what they needed." As the other 3 firms presented, I tried to focus on reviewing our proposal for potential improvements. But my thoughts kept wandering to my father in the hospital, my mother's call, and the pressure of family expectations I'd finally set aside. Then I thought about this moment, this presentation, this career I'd built entirely through my own effort. I had earned my place in that room. No one had handed it to me. It was mine. When all presentations concluded, Diane addressed everyone. "Thank you to all the firms for your time and effort. The council will deliberate this week and announce the final decision at next Thursday's public meeting." We packed up and returned to the office. The car ride buzzed with cautious excitement. Gretchen treated the team to an early dinner downtown, and we spent the evening analyzing our performance. "I think we have a real chance," Marcus said, lifting his glass. "Our proposal was stronger than the others." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Gretchen warned, smiling. "But yes, we did well. Now we wait." That night, when I got home, I found another envelope slipped under my door. It was from my father, his handwriting weak but familiar. Inside was a brief letter. "Laura, your mother told me about your decision last night. I'm disappointed, though not surprised. You've made it clear your career matters more than family. I hope you can live with that choice. When I'm gone, remember that I asked for your help and you refused. Dad." I read it twice, feeling both anger and sorrow. Even from a hospital bed after a heart attack, he still tried to guilt me. It wasn't a letter of reconciliation. It was meant to wound. I went to the kitchen, turned on the stove, and held the letter above the flame until it caught fire. I dropped it into the sink and watched the paper curl and burn, his words turning to ash. I refused to carry that guilt any longer. The following week moved painfully slow. Each day at work felt like waiting for the results of an important exam. We had submitted our proposal, done everything we could. Now the outcome was beyond our control. I tried to shift focus to other projects, but my mind kept drifting back. On Tuesday evening, Jessica called. "Hey," she said. "I heard about Dad. Mom told me you refused to help with the business." "That's not exactly true, but okay," I replied. "I'm not calling to argue," she continued. "Trevor and I spoke to Mom and Dad about their finances. We asked to see their bank and business records. And it's worse than we imagined. Dad's company has been losing money for over a year. They've been living off credit cards and loans, using new debt to pay off the old. It's serious. What do you plan to do? Trevor's setting up a meeting with a financial advisor, someone who can help them restructure or, if necessary, file for bankruptcy. We're also talking to a business broker to see if Dad's firm could be sold. That sounds like the right step, I said. Jessica continued. Oh, and Trevor asked them about your college tuition. Dad admitted he only paid for one semester. Mom tried to justify it, saying they meant to cover more but couldn't afford it. But they lied. To us, to their friends, probably to themselves. I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner. It's okay. You trusted what they told you. Still, I should have paid more attention. I should have asked about your life instead of assuming everything was fine. She paused. I know things are still complicated between us, but I want to try for a real relationship. Not just the polite sister act at holidays. Actually getting to know each other. I'd like that too. Good. Coffee sometime? Just us? Yeah, I'd like that. After we hung up, I felt lighter. Maybe we'd never be best friends, but at least we could be honest. And that was new. Thursday came, the day the city council would announce their decision. The meeting began at 7 p.m., and Gretchen invited the entire team to attend. We sat together in the audience as the council went through routine matters first. Finally, Diane reached our agenda item. Next, we have the decision on the Portland Sustainability Initiative contract, she announced. After reviewing all 4 proposals, the council has reached a unanimous decision. My heart raced. The contract will be awarded to Thorne Systems. Their proposal showed the strongest commitment to sustainability, a realistic timeline, and exceptional technical expertise. Congratulations to the Thorne Systems team. Applause filled the room. Gretchen squeezed my hand, her eyes bright with excitement. Marcus was grinning, and the rest of the team hugged and celebrated. We'd won. The following weeks were a whirlwind of contract talks, planning meetings, and press coverage. The project was major news in the local environmental community, and several outlets requested interviews. Gretchen chose me to represent the team in a few of them. Soon, I was quoted in newspapers and featured in a local business journal highlighting young professionals making an impact. One article even included my photo, and noted that I'd graduated valedictorian in engineering. That same day, Jessica texted, Mom saw the article. She's freaking out. Just wanted to warn you. Sure enough, an hour later, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail but listened later. Laura, I saw your article. I didn't realize you were working on something so important. Your father and I are very proud of you. We'd love to see you and talk. Please call me. I deleted the message. 2 days later, a package arrived. A framed copy of the article and a card. Laura, we're so proud of everything you've achieved. We always knew you were destined for great things. We hope you'll let us share in your success. Love, Mom and Dad. I stared at it, conflicted. They were proud now that I was successful, something they could brag about. But where were they during the hard years? When I was struggling through college, working nights, studying till dawn, they wanted to share the victory but not the journey. I put the frame in a closet and tossed the card away. That weekend, I met Jessica for coffee as promised. She looked different, softer, more sincere. We sat in a quiet corner and talked for hours about our childhood, our parents, and how differently we'd grown up under the same roof. I think I was in denial, Jessica admitted. It was easier to pretend Mom and Dad were perfect than to face how unfair things were. But after Trevor's loan, Dad's heart attack, and the business collapse, I can't pretend anymore. It's hard to see your parents as flawed people instead of authority figures. Yeah, I agreed. I feel guilty, she added. Guilty for benefiting from their favoritism. Guilty for not standing up for you. Guilty for never questioning it. You were a kid, Jessica. You can't blame yourself for their choices. Maybe not, but I can choose how I treat you now. She looked at me earnestly. I want you to know I see you. Really see you. I'm amazed by what you've achieved. The project, your career, and all of it. You did it on your own, and that's incredible. Thank you, I said quietly. That means a lot. We plan to meet again the following week, and when we parted, I felt hopeful that something genuine was finally forming between us. The next Tuesday, I got an email from Dad. It was brief but sincere. Laura, I wanted to let you know I'm selling the business. The heart attack made me realize I need to change my life. I'll be retiring and focusing on my health. Your mother and I are also downsizing to ease our finances. I know our relationship has been strained, but I hope you understand I tried my best. If you're willing, I'd like to meet for coffee. No pressure, just to talk. I reread it 3 times, searching for manipulation. But it felt genuine. For once, he acknowledged our distance without blaming me. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to decide if I was ready to reopen that door. A month later, Gretchen called me into her office. Laura, you've proven yourself. You're smart, composed, and handle challenges well. I think you're ready for more responsibility. She offered me the position of junior project manager, with a promotion and a raise. I accepted immediately, overwhelmed with gratitude. That evening I called Kelsey. That's amazing, she said. We have to celebrate tomorrow. And have you thought more about grad school? The deadline's soon. I had been thinking about it. 2 more years of study would be tough, but it could open doors to leadership in environmental policy, a chance to make real change. I think I'll apply, I said. I can study part-time and Thorn Systems offers tuition reimbursement. Do it, she said. You've come too far to stop now. She was right. I'd worked too hard to stop moving forward. In the following weeks, I balanced my new job with writing my graduate applications, essays about sustainability, systemic change, and using engineering for social good. I also finally replied to my father, Dad, thank you for reaching out. I'm open to meeting for coffee, but things can't go back to how they were. If we're going to rebuild, it has to be honest and equal. Let me know when you're free, he responded the next day. I understand. How about Saturday at 10? Morning Grounds Cafe. I arrived early, nervous. When Dad walked in, I barely recognized him. Thinner, pale, still recovering. We ordered coffee and sat by the window. Thank you for coming, he said. You're welcome. I've been reflecting since the heart attack, he continued. I realize I've made many mistakes, especially with you. Your mother and I pushed Jessica too hard to be perfect and didn't give you enough attention. We assumed you'd be fine because you were independent. That wasn't fair. You deserved better. It wasn't a flawless apology. It didn't acknowledge every way they had hurt me, but it was genuine. And that was enough to begin. I appreciate you saying that, I told him. I also want you to know that I read the articles about your project. I had no idea you were doing such meaningful work. I'm impressed, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to support you. I didn't tell you because I didn't think you'd care. I know, I said quietly. That's on me. He took a slow sip of his coffee. I don't expect you to forgive me right away or to suddenly want a close relationship. But I hope we can start over, maybe build something better, one step at a time. We ended up talking for another hour about his retirement plans, selling the business, and his health. It wasn't an easy conversation. There were pauses, awkward moments, and tension. But for the first time, it felt real, more honest than anything we'd shared before. When we finally parted, I didn't feel the usual pressure or the invisible burden of their approval. Instead, I felt lighter, free, as if I'd finally released something I'd been holding on to for years. In the months that followed, my parents faced the full impact of their decisions. The business sold for far less than my father had hoped, barely covering a portion of their debts. They were forced to declare bankruptcy, losing their home and nearly all their belongings. They moved into a small apartment and began again with very little. My father took a part-time consulting position to supplement his limited pension, and my mother returned to work as an administrative assistant. The image they had worked so hard to maintain, the prosperous business owners, the suburban comfort, the illusion of success, fell apart completely. Friends who once admired their generosity and wealth quietly stepped away once the truth surfaced. Jessica helped when she could, but she and Trevor had their own responsibilities and couldn't support my parents financially. As for me, I kept moving forward. I began my graduate studies, excelled in my new role at Thornberry Systems, and built a sincere relationship with Jessica, one grounded in honesty rather than guilt. My father and I continued meeting for coffee from time to time, carefully rebuilding a connection piece by piece. My mother took longer to change, but eventually she stopped trying to influence me and started genuinely listening. Looking back on that day at Jessica's wedding, the day I handed my father that envelope and walked away, I realized it had never been only about the money. It was about reclaiming my self-worth, breaking free from control, and finally choosing myself. The journey hadn't been easy, but it was mine, and that made all the difference.